Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jake, the Scary Story Guy. Ooh. Today we're reviewing a recently released horror film called Possessor. Here's the short version. It's good. If you're interested in hearing more than that, by all means, stick around. But please, once again, understand, I'm not a film critic. I'm probably not going to use the word auteur or wax poetic about cinematography. I'm just a guy who likes scary stories, and I'm here to tell you what I thought about this one. Possessor was directed by Brandon Cronenberg, and if that name sounds familiar to you horror heads out there, that's because his father is, in fact, David Cronenberg, the king of body horror himself. And while I wouldn't call Possessor a classic that will be remembered decades from now, like some of his father's work, this is truthfully a very good movie. And it's probably my favorite horror movie of 2020, at least of the ones that I've seen. Kids chip off the old block. Possessor grabbed me right from the jump. This feels like a really gritty, intense, hyper-violent episode of Black Mirror. Show which is already no slouch when it comes to being gritty, intense, and hyper-violent. In fact, the main character here is played by a British actress named Andrea Riseborough. I spent the entire movie trying to figure out where I'd seen her before. Turns out, she starred in an episode of Black Mirror called Crocodile, which incidentally is one of the most gritty, intense, and hyper-violent episodes of the series. See where I'm going here? Possessor is nuts, guys. This movie does not let up. So Riseborough plays Tajia Voss, an assassin who uses futuristic technology to inhabit the body of another person before carrying out her hit. So if she wants to get close to someone, she can possess the body of their coworker or their friend or their spouse. She's very good at her job, but understandably, this is the kind of occupation that might take its toll on you. Working 9 to 5! Early on in the movie, we can see what kind of effect this is having on Tajia. She'll come back into her body after committing murder in someone else's, and immediately she's got to answer all sorts of questions about like who she is and where she is and what she's doing. And she seems disoriented, but she's kind of got to go through that process of like, okay, I'm back to being me again. And she's trying to balance this with a pretty quaint and normal family life, which, as you might expect, is difficult. In her job, she needs to study the people she's going to possess, figure out their behavior and nail down their mannerisms and everything like that. She finds herself actually having to do that with her own life. Like she'll practice the lines she's going to say to her kids just in normal conversations before the conversation ever happens. So the movie centers around Tajia as she accepts a new assignment, which is to inhabit some guy's body and assassinate a powerful businessman, played by, wait for it, Sean Bean. Which is amazing, because obviously it's been a running joke for years that Sean Bean characters always die these horrible, tragic deaths. And this movie just decided to really lean into it and be like, you know what, let's make the entire film center around somebody trying to bring about the death of Sean Bean. Amazing. Poor bastard. Now the plot, the actual storyline of this movie is not anything special. Like, it's a good technological thriller, but like, so was Upgrade, and I haven't thought about that movie since the credits rolled. Whereas with Possessor, I've been thinking about this movie ever since I saw it, and I think that's because as a film, it's not content with just being a cool crowd pleaser. It's actually interested in tackling the philosophical, existential questions that its tech produces, and I think that's where the movie truly excels. A lot of movies use this plot device where one person inhabits another person's body, but it's usually done in this kind of lighthearted, Freaky Friday, Zac Efron kind of way. I remember being a kid watching the live-action Scooby-Doo movie, and Fred at one point ends up in Daphne's body somehow, and he looks down and he's like, I'm gonna go look at myself naked. Which, to my 9-year-old self, was the pinnacle of comedy. But if you really think about it, this would be such a disorienting and kind of disgusting experience. To say nothing of what it would be like to have someone do that to you. I mean, talk about trauma. But this movie does a phenomenal job of taking that concept seriously, really making you think, what would this be like? And for me, it just made me shudder. I'm totally serious, by the way. I'm normally the guy who can watch a Saw movie without even, batting an eye, whereas this movie just had me cringing my ass off on so many different occasions. And I think the difference is this movie was successful not just at portraying the violence and viscera of this whole process with sufficient depravity, but also it brought a philosophical elegance to the subject matter that really made me cringe on an emotional level as well. It's not just a cheap gross out. It's more of a refined gross out, if you will. Cronenberg is truly an auteur. Damn it. Now, this is not a movie I would recommend for everyone. I've used the phrase gritty, intense, and hyper-violent like 4 times now, because I'm trying to get through to you. This movie is bonkers on like a few different levels. This also isn't a movie I'd recommend watching casually. I wouldn't have it on while you're flipping through your phone or multitasking or something. It's gonna demand your full attention. The good news is, it does a wonderful job of capturing it. It's also not very long. It's like 1 hour 40. And I have very little patience with a movie that overstays its welcome. This one does not. Cronenberg obviously understands that his audience's attention span is limited, and he gets how to pace and be really economical with the time he's got. Guys, in the end, Possessor is a totally striking movie. It's fresh, and it brings some just originality to a really well-worn genre. Okay, it's not just about a futuristic assassin. It's about how technology can really aid and accentuate the more depraved side of humanity. Wouldn't necessarily say I'm dying to rewatch it immediately, but I've been thinking about it since it ended, which is usually a pretty good sign. Now, I think scary movies are a bit like people. Some shine, and some don't. So the time has come to give Possessor a rating, Sergeant Darwin style. Remember, until I come up with something better, I'm using the Letterboxd rating scale on this channel, and I'm going to go ahead and give Possessor 4 stars out of 5. Guys, as always, thanks so much for watching, all 10 of you. I love horror stories, guys. I love talking about them. I even write some horror stories of my own, so if you'd like to read those, I'll put a link in the description. In the meantime, if you liked this video, if you want to see more horror content, more scary movie reviews like this one, please go ahead and subscribe. Thanks again for watching my video. Here's hoping you survive to see the next one.